The model 3941 MS dual station end forming machine. The two stations are the forming cylinder and the clamp cylinder. This machine is designed to form the ends of tubes using multiple stage dies, because we're going from larger diameters down to smaller diameters and reductions, and it must be done in multi-stages. There's two palm buttons to operate the form cycle. It's self-contained, has its own reservoir. It's got a 5 horsepower motor, 3 gallon a minute pump, and it's rated at 3,000 psi. Looking at the oil filter, the solenoid valves. I'm going to zoom in on the relief valve. This is a system pressure relief valve. There's the solenoid valves. On the solenoid valve to the right, just below the valve on the right hand side there, just below that, there's a PO check valve. That PO check valve is used for the clamping cylinder. This machine is 230 or 440 volts. This particular machine is 440 volts. For that reason we have a transformer to go from 440 down to 220, and the 220 is what's operating the controls. Although the palm buttons are 24 volts, the voltage is reduced from 440 down to 220. That would operate the system inside where the PLC system is housed, and everything else is, as far as the palm buttons are concerned, they're 24 volts. Switches that we're looking at right now, you can read it okay. It's a clamp cylinder and the form cylinder. So when you're going to operate the clamp cylinder manually, which it has to be operated manually, you have to depress one palm button and with the other hand operate the switch to open or close the clamp, up or down. And the form cylinder is a 3-position switch. The A is automatic. When you hit the palm buttons, it's going to cycle automatically. To do it manually, you hit one palm button with one hand and use the other hand to move the cylinder forward or reverse. Looking at the forming dies, there's 2 sets of these die assemblies. And because the amount we're reducing, we have to do it in approximately 8 stages. There's the clamp assembly, and this little item we see, the red item we see in the back there, that is a little rest, because we have to use spacers for when we use shorter tubes. These particular screws here are a little spring, there's a little ball assembly with a spring on it, so that the dies will always end up, there's a little slot on the dies, will end up in perfect alignment. And we'll operate the machine here in a short while so that you can see exactly what takes place on the forming operation. This form cylinder advances on a time cycle. The time is set for a specific amount of time, so it goes forward, stops, comes back, stops. There's no proximity switches or micro switches or any electronics needed other than the time cycle in the PLC system. We're looking at the PLC system inside the control box, and it's not lit up at the moment, but if I can get a closer view there. Okay, you can see those arrows up and down. In the service manual, it instructs you exactly how to set the time. These timers are for the clamp and for the forming cylinder. The spacers that we spoke about that you have to put on each tube, there's 4 different configurations on this particular operation, and because there are 4 different lengths, and there's 2 different sizes in terms of the reduction. The starting diameter of this tubing is 1 5/8. We reduce one down to 1 3/8 and the other one down to 1 1/8. There's the shorter tubes. Here's the second set of dies. It's easy to remove and replace the dies. Now we're going to go through a form cycle. What the operator has here right now is on the right-hand side there is this metal spacer, or it's a rod spacer, and then there's a tube. Now what he does, he inserts the tube inside the spacer, and then he inserts it inside the clamp. And now you see that the rod is sitting up against a rest in the backstop there, so that keeps the tube nice and parallel. Okay, now he's going to close the clamp. Clamp closed and the die's in all position now. He's going to do the form cycle. This is the first form cycle. Holds the palm buttons down, makes the form, comes back and stops. He moves the die over to the next position, number 2, hits the 2 palm buttons, comes back and stops, moves it to position number 3, hits the 2 palm buttons, goes to position number 4, hits the 2 palm buttons. Now that particular part is all complete now. Now he'll move the die back to the starting position again. And now with one hand on the palm button and the other on the switch in the top, he'll open up the clamp. Now the part's complete. He pulls it out. Now we're looking at the completed deformed part. It's from the back side now, so you can get an idea how this thing works. The clamp's already closed over the tube. Now he'll proceed to do the forming. Just go through the whole cycle route. This particular part is 1 5/8 down to 1 3/8. And we're looking at another side of it now. Now he'll move the die to the number 3 position. Then he moves to number 4 position. And the part is complete. Now this particular die assembly will go from 1 5/8 down to 1 3/8. To do the 1 1/8, we have to change the die assembly. Okay, he's now completed the first stage on forming the 1 5/8 down to 1/8. It's the first stage of dies that he uses to go down to 1 3/8. He's going to remove the die assembly now. And he just pulls it back towards him. It slides right out. And then he'll bring it over and put it in a workstation somewhere. He'll get the next die assembly. And he'll insert it in between the guides, and he goes to the first stage. Now he'll start making the second form of cycles. Go, Ralph. It's exactly the same way he does the first one. But now this tube is going to end up to be 1 1/8, where the other tube is 1 3/8, and the starting diameter is 1 5/8. and he'll get it back to number 1 again. Opens up the clamp, removes the part. And there's the formed part. This one is 1 5/8 down to 1 3/8. So basically that's a whole simple operation of the machine. You may say that why doesn't the machine go faster? If you go too fast, you generate a lot of heat, and eventually you get more work hardening, and the dies will probably break down a lot quicker. These dies are made out of tool steel and they're nitrided. The only way to make the whole system a lot faster is to add an automatic indexing unit that AMH also can produce. He's already gone through the first stage of down to 1 3/8. Now he's going on the last stage down to 1 1/8. But we can add automatic indexing units that the operator simply hits a button and the whole thing can take off and go through the whole cycle. Call AMH if you need any information about any types of equipment that we produce. Thank you.